Fieldfare, brown hair, dragonfly, wild eye, raven wing, otter sleek, berry bright, bird beak.
Welcome everybody to Seven Fables in Exmoor, in Dulverton in Exmoor. It is the most glorious shop. If you ever find yourself out this way, come and visit it. It's full of the most delicious books and prints and stuff, lovely stuff.
Art, I think they call it
art.
art.
We call it art.
Art.
We call it art. And we've got a lot of Jackie's art and a lot of Tamsin's art here. You can see some of it on the walls behind you. And we're here for the very happy occasion, which is that it is almost exactly a year since we were sitting in a garden not far from here. And I think it was the first time I'd properly looked at I'd seen your stuff online, but I think we were looking at stuff and it suddenly struck me that this should be in a book.
Yeah, I think I was showing you some work that I was making for an exhibition.
That's it.
And I was showing you because I know that you love Alan Garner.
Do.
And some of the work was inspired by his writing.
And what I felt about it was that it reminded me of, I've got a massive crush on an artist called Gertrude Hermes.
Oh yes.
An engraver who did incredibly surreal in the sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, not as well known as she should be. And there's that particularly extraordinary thing of the baby under the hill.
I haven't even seen that one.
No, your one.
Oh, mine.
Yeah, with the little papoose-like child under, and I just thought this is really powerful, psychologically complex image making. And then we were sitting there thinking, what we really need is we need some stories and then we had on the same bench, like a sort of Beckett play, Jackie Morris. And what did you say?
I was jumping up and down in the background going, I've got some stories. I've got stories that I've written. I've got some stories. I wonder if you might consider I'd love to work for Tamsin. And I was kind of feeding in the background, and then they noticed me, which was nice.
Yeah, and out of that, fairly rapidly, we came up with a structure. We decided it had to be 7 tales.
Yeah.
Because
seven fables, and 7 is a magical number, and there are 7 stories, and 7 is steeped in magic.
And so that we'll come on to what we've got in a moment, but the idea was that we would have 7 stories, 7 tales, and they'd
be wild. We were
yeah, they had to be wild.
Yeah.
Because just to point out that Jackie and I have known each other a long time.
Yeah.
And still like each other.
Yeah.
And had you ever thought of a collaboration before?
There was a period where
have you ever exhibited together?
Yes, actually, we have exhibited together.
Oh,
but also
together yeah.
When you did your Wales,
with
the ship over the top, I was really wanting to do a book about Wales, but it didn't seem like the right time.
No, it wasn't. For me, it wasn't the right book and the right time. I think it probably could have worked, but I just thought, this is a new thing to use glass as an illustration and a means of illustrating words. And I just thought that Wales and the sea might be slightly limited in showing what you can do with glass.
Yeah, because as I hope we'll be able to share with people who have tuned in to this hour of I suppose update and conversation and reading. We have got some original stuff for the book that we haven't shared really before. We have some technical challenges. The technical challenges, I think, are going to be a constant theme. Those of you who supported Jackie's book Featherleaf, Bark and Stone will remember that had that had some technical challenges, which
Sorry, John.
which we managed to overcome.
Really sorry, John.
But I hope you'll get some sense of the luminous quality of Tamsin's art, because that's what we're going to try and capture on the page. These are they're like three-dimensional images, aren't they? When the light shines through them, you have a sense of
They're illuminations in a different way, aren't they?
like magic lantern slides.
Yeah.
Which is all of this we love. We love the whole, and light has always been important to you as well.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and I think we have known each other for a long time, but and we're both very supportive of each other, emotionally as well as through work. And it's just, I think we both got better than we were then. So it just, there's that moment, when you just feel like there's a bit of magic. And certainly in that garden, which was like a kind of oasis in a forest.
Well, it's almost like being on the prow of a boat, isn't it, Northmore?
Yeah.
And you just
It's
look over the
green sea of trees.
Full of owls and deer and
Yeah.
Amazing.
And wildness. Yeah.
So Wild Folk the idea was that that each of the tales would be connected to landscape. Also, kind of through the book, figures will recur. Wayland, there's a whole chapter on Wayland, the smith, and the idea of ancient sacred sites as well is very important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, well, it's Tales from the Stones, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the idea that those places have such a deep resonance for us, and we don't really know why they're there. We know some of the things that some of them were used for, but not all of them. And I just think that the ancient sites in this country have a sort of unifying force that overcomes politics and everything. And just to be able to visit those places and draw something from them is a great gift that we have.
It's really interesting that you say that. I mean, do you feel the same, Jackie? Do you think there is a kind of, why do some places have resonance more than others, do you think?
I get very drawn to certain places where there are stones. One is St David's Head, where there's a burial chamber. It's like many places called Arthur's Stone, and you just see occasionally there might have been women involved in some of these places, I think. But what there was that when we went to the one in above Hay.
That's Arthur's Stone as well.
And travelling together to these places gives it a stronger resonance. But when I first moved to Wales 31 years ago, I met a poet called Mararid Hopwood, who is just an enchanting fae person who is just wonderful. And she said to me, Jackie, if you listen, the stones will tell you stories. And I've always remembered that. And I think if you have an imagination, you go to these places, sometimes that's what happens. And there's a dreaming alongside it as well. You
live in Wales, in Pembrokeshire, and you're not far from Wales, in Herefordshire. That one of the things that struck me the last few times I've been there is this idea that a lot of the naming of the places in Welsh is, very ancient indeed, and that every river, every mountain, every bit of the landscape there is an
indigenous language. That's what it is. Welsh is the indigenous language of our land.
It's very powerful when you find, and they're often very beautiful, the names for the old names for things.
Yeah.
But it's very odd, isn't it, why certain places do seem to have this kind of big charge, and whether that's just self-fulfilling because people have,
just looking for that magic.
They find as generation upon generation goes and uses them, they kind of get charged. We had one editorial meeting for this book at the Rollright Stones, which is very close to me.
But then yesterday, Tamsin and I walked through a place that is in one of the stories, which is Mounsey, which is not far from Dulverton. And on the Mounsey side of the river,
Yeah.
We walk down these pathways, sometimes having to scramble over quite inaccessible parts. We cross the stream,
Yeah.
which also happens in the story. He takes her hand as they cross the stream, and then you go into a different place. But didn't you feel that at that stream?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you then go up this little rise, and on the one side there is Mounsey Castle, and on the other side there's another
castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tamsin, I sat at the bottom. I'm only about 10 weeks in recovery from a knee operation. So I sat at the bottom of the mound and watched Tamsin walking up this hill. And as she was going up to the top, I thought, oh, I better take a good look now, because this might be the last time I see her. And when she comes back, she might be an old woman.
Well, it's funny because as I started walking up the hill,
Yeah.
I turned around and I just waved. I didn't think you saw.
No, I did. I saw you wave goodbye.
Yeah, and I thought,
oh, okay.
I would not be coming back.
Yeah.
And
that is not a place that is visited by very many people, so it doesn't have that resonance of other people's dreaming there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the plaques and the the information.
But also what I was going to say, particularly, you've got the stones and ancient sites, or if people don't have those, they often have a tree that they might visit. But Jackie's stories, the way that she's writing them, often they are a reworking. There's a resonance of older stories, older writings in there, and it is almost like that's a part of the same tradition of the stories of the stones and the stories of this land that have been retold over and over again.
Shall we have a story, and then we can talk a little bit more about how you go around? But this one is it's almost a call and response story, isn't it?
It is, and I haven't got a title for it at the moment, but there's a poem by a poet called Yeats, and in my deep ignorance, I actually thought that this was a song that was written by Christy Moore, because that's where I first heard it. I didn't realise.
First heard it.
Yeah, it's in the Ride On album.
Yeah.
So whenever I hear it, I still hear it as if it has the music. So it's the Song of Wandering Angus, and it's always intrigued me. I'm going to read, because not everybody knows the Christy Moore song, or actually we now know the poem by Yeats. I'm going to read that first. Thank you. And then I'm going to, what is quite magical as well is that I wanted to read this poem today, and I went next door into a secondhand bookshop, and I was sat on a chair reading Seamus Heaney, and then I looked down and this book was at my feet. So Song of Wandering Angus. I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossom in her hair, who called me by my name and ran and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among long dappled grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun. So this song had wandered around and around in my head, and I had two questions that I wanted to answer, and one was, it was a time of red berries, but she had a crown of apple blossom, so how? You've got two seasons out of joint there. And then the other one was, how did she know his name? So this is what I set out to find. And I found myself communing with the ghost of a poet, which was a mighty fine thing to do. So this is what I've written at the moment. It's called River Song, but it isn't going to stay called that. And it is like a call and response in a way. She sits still beside the river. He wanders hollow lands and hilly lands, barrows and burial mounds, circles and stones searching. Did he question how she knew his name, a stranger who, as fire burned inside his mind, had come to this place? Apple blossom at the time of red berries, river's edge, day's edge, mothlight and starlight, and the time of full moon in the daylight sky, the time of wild magic. A hazel one, a berry bright, stars aligned, owl flight. She sits still beside the river. She remembers the lure of berry bright, its taste in her mouth, the lift and the shock as water became air, and silver she rested on riverbank. Full moon, bright moon, light on the water and falling star, as she turned, silver scales shimmering, lungs tasting air. How did she know his name? She watched him kindle flame from gathered twig, blow the flame to dance with light, fire glow glimmering on her dress, silver like the scales she wore in river life, apple blossom crown resting on wet hair. She swayed in the current of air. He looked up across flame light. Rising moon made a halo for her head. Dark beauty, silhouette, apple blossom, desire. Moth light, bats fly, otter's breath, heron's cry. Into this moment she spoke his name, then turned upstream and ran, fading as the morning star into the mist, taking his heart, his longing, his breath away. He wandered, hollow lands and hilly, asking, searching, seeking, yearning for the apple blossom beauty of her that never faded in his memory, wishing only to hold her hands, to kiss her lips. He searched, following the paths and moths. He followed dreams and streams from Swallowhead Spring to Winterbourne, across narrow becks and rivers wide, and down beside the sea he spoke with fishing folk. In spring, seduced by scent, he found himself in orchards, blossom bees who danced a pattern that sang with his longing. She sat still on riverbank beside the trees as water moved, restless. Through long summer days, sun-warmed, short nights, through autumn's harvest moon heavy, full, leaf full, berry bright, listening as river song changed with seasons, falling rain, winter freeze, summer drought, autumn leaves. When ice wrapped rivers bank in glowing light, when summer seeds caught in rivers flow, still she sat, statue still, waiting. Birds came and went, and some brought news of him, and all the while the water rushed, restless, full with life, towards the sea. And still he searched beneath the fairy hills, in caves water carved from stone, through winter freeze, through summer rain. At Kalani she asked the Shining One, who simply pointed back along the path, his footprints left through spider webs rich with diamond dew. In northern lands he spoke with Coventina, drank at her well where the white hart drinks, listened, watched, hope in heart, to rook call, raven flight, jay feather, eyes bright with longing. And when the acorns came, he spoke with the spirit of the white-leaved oak, whose leaves sang go back. Through borderlands to Cymru, to Alba and the islands and Albion, where his horse lame, he paid a silver coin, and Wayland made bright shoes. And when he asked the smith about the silver lady of his dreams, he stilled the hammer. The wren sang into the silence. Looking skyward, he simply said, "Go back." With these words hammering in his head to Kurnow, where on a stone he found a labyrinth, weary now with wandering in hollow lands and hilly, he lingered, traced the pattern's pathway in, the pathway out, and in his mind, go back. Cold now, weary with wondering, fire still burning in mind, body aflame with the pains of age, fire in joints, hair thinned and grey and back bent, eyes dimmed. He sought again the place of hazelwood and rowanberry and bright stream. Moonlight on water, moths on the wing, trout rise, owl call, and the slow flight of heron as water moves and she sits still, apple blossom crown, otter curled in arms, still as fresh as that first day when stars were fading in the brightening air. Through clouded vision he saw, or thought he saw, the moth-like stars, the glimmering and gloaming, the girl. She called him by his name again, but words were lost in a third time, and held out her hand as he stepped towards the vision and placed his old unsteady hand in hers. As otters slipped to stream, she cradled his body, sat him down in moonlight dappled grass, and he wished only now to die in the curve of her warm arms. Here where water flowed, between the light of night and day, she took out a comb, began to comb the ragged grey, and with every stroke the hair grew longer, thicker, stronger, darkened in the wakening light. And each movement of the comb eased the fire inside the mind, dulled the burning joints until the stars flickered out, blinded by day's light. He became again the young man who, so long ago, had hooked the berry to a thread. She turned his face towards the light and kissed his lips and held his hand.
Amazing. Well, thank you.
You're right.
So that's the first time. We shared that publicly. But I'd love to know, Jackie, about how you go about.
I'd love to know how I did that, because I'd like to be able to do that again.
How do you? I mean, obviously, you've sent us that in bits.
In bits, yeah, and sometimes
recorded, and which is amazing to get a little WhatsApp message with the next installment.
Bits, but then some bits fall beside the way, and I still wonder whether that's a bit too long, but I'm not sure. It's curious. I tend to work on one at a time. And after finishing that, it's been quite a space in between finishing that and the next one. I really wanted to keep that until I came here, because I love the Baal and I wanted to sit beside the river and listen. But to be honest, it was those two questions that I wanted to answer.
It's really interesting.
But then Rob McFarlane had gone to Canada, and he was traveling down a river from source to sea on a kayak. He's quite fit, and I had just had this knee operation, and I was not really mobile. I wasn't even walking, and but the key to it came to me. You can travel down a river, but you can also sit beside a river and let it go past you. And I wanted to have the two, the wandering soul who just wanders the land searching for love. And she's just sitting there thinking, oh, you'll be back sometime, you know. I still don't know.
The two timescale things.
Yeah. I love the flow. And just, I did go to I went to Nevin and sat beside the river and listened to it speak. And every river has a different language. It's beautiful, a different music. Every part of a river has a different music, and it has a different music at different times. The scent of it is amazing. You know, but do you put all that in, or is that an irrelevance? I want people to go and sit beside a river, really, and listen to themselves, see the green light when it's overhung with trees. And
And you got that, some of the mothlight and the glowing, some of that was from the poem, the Yeats poem.
Yeah.
But you kind of you built out from that.
Yeah, and I did at times think to myself, goodness me, it's very arrogant of me to be trying to respond to this, but also it was like communing with this ghost of a poet, and I want to do more of that. I want to find out more about him now I know that he wasn't Christy Moore's lyricist. And find out more about the man, but also more through his writing. I know very little of it. So it's, and what a wonderful happenstance of finding exactly the right book only an hour ago.
That is extraordinary.
There's a magic in the world.
Nudging your foot in a second-hand bookshop in Dublin.
Yeah, but just looking down at it's like, oh yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
But in a way, the words, it doesn't matter who wrote them, does it? I mean, it's the conversation that you've had and created something new. And then, we're privileged that we get to hear it first. But for me to hear you reading your words that's the next step in then taking them on.
Yeah. So the wonderful thing for me is, like, if I'm writing for myself, I have images in my head. Writing for somebody else, especially writing for Tamsin, I'm trying to get inside her head, but I'm not trying to push images in there. I'm trying to think, sometimes it is, what would she love to create? Every single time so far, way beyond anything I'd expected. And that is just wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
And how does that work for you, Tamsin? When you were saying actually earlier before we started that the listening to Jackie speak has been really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
To giving you the kind of the almost like the visual inspiration.
I think it is, but it's also going back to that lyrical thing of reading, rather, somebody reading the words out loud, and obviously Jackie wrote them, so she's the perfect person to read them. But to be able to listen to them and absorb them, and to have the privilege of being able to listen to them over and over again, is a much more free way of allowing images to come. And also there's something about the way that Jackie writes that leaves a lot of space for one's own imagination. So this is the new story that I'm starting to think about, so I haven't started on the illustrations yet, but today I was lying in the grass, listening to them with the sound of the river in the distance, and already the first ideas are coming in, and I'm ready to get going with that. So that will be what I'm doing tomorrow, starting on those. But one of the other stories is Blood Awith, and with that it was a time when the flowers on our hill doesn't belong to us where I walk.
Does belong to you.
Well, yes. We're all sort of in their late stages of blooming. And I just had the voice of Blood Awith, not just from Jackie's words, but in a sort of extension of that, speaking to me, and also sort of coming from the earth itself, from these plants, because she's formed of flowers. Kind of almost overtook me, and I can feel the same thing happening with this story. And that's what's really special about it. And also, I think I said once before that when I'm making the work, I'm also trying to not make illustrations, in a sense. To make works of art that
in response.
In response.
That's so, you know, it's another call and response.
yes,
You're making something out of your own imagination that kind of is somehow inspired or connected to the.
Makes it deeper. I mean, all the stories are in some way about shape shifting. So Blodaiwith is a woman who is made to be the perfect woman for the man who is to be her husband. But it always struck me that she may have been made to be the perfect woman for him, but he was not the perfect man for her. And perhaps she was happy being flowers on the hillside before she was ripped from the earth. And her punishment is even better because she does try to kill her husband and succeed very well, I think. And her punishment is to be made into an owl. And you know, what punishment is that for any woman? I always found it uneasy in the Alan Garner story, The Owl Service, which is based on the same myth. He says she would always rather be flowers than owls, and I think, yeah, you're right. I would always rather be owl than flowers. Give me claws and set me out hunting. Thank you very much.
But yeah, I mean, the Blodaiwith story was I mean, it's originally in the Mabinogion, but you're not just retelling old tales in this book, are you? You're kind of and you, I mean, we know that from your, you know, the Wild Swans and East of the Sun, West of the Moon, that you're particularly interested in restoring the what we might call the feminine energy, or the female characters in these stories that have perhaps sometimes not been given the prominence.
Yeah, East of the Sun, the character that Wild Swans. Wild Swans, the character for me who took over was the stepmother, the much maligned stepmother who suffered misogyny. And was ignored, well, not trusted by her husband. He was happy to marry her, but not to trust her with his intimate secret of his hidden family. And I kind of wanted to give her a bit of space and a bit of voice, and understand why she might be a little bit peeved, really. Yeah, I guess it's looking at a different aspect. I've got 2 more stories that really need writing. The Blodaiwith one was interesting because I'd written it for another book and it was quite short, and I was about to change it to write more, and Tamsin said, don't, it's perfect, leave it as it is. And I kind of read through it again and just thought, oh right, yeah,
it's got the space within it.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be any longer at all.
Yeah.
And we've got 5 texts now, don't we, of the 7?
I've got 5, yeah. I've got 2 more to do. I don't know which way they're going yet, John, sorry.
It's all right.
Don't know whether they'll be short or long.
We've got some illustrations for all of them except the river one, which is
we are going to look at some illustrations in a moment, so
yeah, we'll do our best.
Yeah, but I was going to ask about the timescale of the book, unfortunately, because it's art rather than just, you know, doodles. The book won't be ready until 2025. The art is not being delivered until the middle of 2024. So we are, obviously, it's a long haul for everybody who's supported the book. But I think we're hoping that the time will actually will make it an even better book.
And we're hoping we'll have worked out how to best reproduce the artwork.
We're going to do that in a moment.
I think we've got an idea, but
several ideas.
Yeah.
And what other plans have we got? That we should say that and we've had fantastic support. We're very close to 200% funded.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
And we're going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. We're going to come back to you all with another plan to get to we want to get to 210%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's just the beginning.
Well, we can keep going.
In the short term, because we want, as a it's very important, we should say how important Seven Fables have been, just on not only have they given over, and Chris is here, Chris and Davina, who run and own the shop, are massive supporters of artists and writers.
Chris is a very fine writer as well.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, and
is.
both artists.
Both.
It's just amazing.
It's a very happy, and it's their 21st anniversary in this year.
Yeah.
So 210% is would be the next chunk to aim for, and we've got some ideas about how to get there. But and also those of you who don't know it, go online, Seven Fables. I think it's sevenfables.com, Chris. .co.uk. And you'll see lots of beautiful stuff. But coming back to this book, what are some of our other plans?
Before we come back to this book, there's something really different about working. You know, I work with a lot of publishers, John, other than Unbound, and it's like, what's she going to say next? But there's something about working in this way where you have this really strong connection with people, and that people are willing to come in so early and support you and follow along. And you know, we do updates, and we do some that are open, but some just for subscribers. Having that connection with readers as you're making the work, it doesn't change what you write, but it changes how you feel about what you're doing. It is really good to have this feeling of community and to have that other ownership. You know,
and it seems also, because we're all together this week, it just seemed like a perfect time. It's a year since we started it. Yeah. But I think, well, that's nice if you say that, but I think it is a long time for people
to say that either.
It is a long time, but then I think part of the excitement of it is you are watching the book evolve.
Yeah, definitely.
We don't know exactly how it's going to turn out.
Well, especially at the beginning, that first 100% we got within a week.
Yeah,
and all of those people.
Amazing.
We hadn't really produced anything much at that point. So,
and while we will, and it's great to do in real life things. You know, we can still do this, which we've had over 100 people sign up for this evening, which is just incredible. And the plan, we're going to do a launch.
The launch is going to be 2025, and it will be Exmoor with an exhibition, and hopefully a walk up to Stones and reading stories at Stones. And then my idea was that every bookshop we went to had to have a stone circle or a burial chamber nearby. So if there's any bookshop owners out there listening,
it seems like a perfectly reasonable
look up your nearest Neolithic site.
It'll be Seven Fables that are laying on the exhibition.
Yeah, it's almost nostalgic, this sitting and doing this.
I think we can talk about Fair Isle.
Yeah,
what we can talk about?
There's a lot of Fair Isle in the room. Should we have a go at showing people some of the amazing artwork?
Yeah, I've got a little one.
And it's as I've already said, the challenge here is going to be with the final book to get the kind of luminosity.
So this is
actually Shadow Walls.
Oh, a bit too light now.
But the great, well, it's difficult, isn't it?
You keep still.
They are like magic lantern slides, aren't they? They're really.
Yeah, maybe we should try another one. But one of the reasons for showing this one is this is based on where we walked yesterday, and there are shadow walls, and also one of the advantages of glass over paper is that you can paint on both sides. So some of the walls are on the back and some are on the front,
which gives it this really eerie three-dimensional feeling. Like it's.
So I want to actually take this back to Moundsey. We'll try another one.
And photograph it.
And photograph it in the actual place where it is supposed to be. because I'm a purist and is he looking worried and John?
I'm not looking worried.
So this is
Oh,
also
no.
a Moundsy one.
Oh yeah.
This is a hair, right?
This is a Moundsy one.
Yeah, I think it is. It's sort of weird.
Kind of engraved into the glass. But it,
And those are sort of little cup and ball Pictish.
Yeah, cup and ring marking, which she's a woman. She's a white hair woman. Yeah, that's gorgeous.
And is that from which story is that from? That's from Nancy as well, isn't it? Yeah.
And the piece that's on the cover, the White Raven, is similar to this in that it's engraved. But it's a red glass. That's an orangey red glass. But this is actually German glass. Getting a bit nerdy about my glass.
And they've all been fired. So when we come out, we'll talk a little bit about the process. This is another. Oh yeah, yeah.
Since we moved away, John's focused more on it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to turn it that way.
Do you need the lines for this one as well? I think that's okay, isn't
So
it?
this is Excalibur, which is from the Wayland story. It's sort of incidental, which is, well, incidental. Excalibur is pretty important, but yeah, I think this is where the stories just flow into my own imagination, and I pick out sort of certain themes and images. And again, this has been painted in layers.
Yeah.
And on the front, painted on the front and the back. And this one's also been engraved. And this is a bit of English mouth-blown glass.
Mouth-blown glass. I can't get my head round.
Right, should we talk a little bit about making your art?
Yes.
Because I think people would.
Yeah.
I think you need to explain mouth-blown glass.
Mouth-blown glass.
Flat sheet of it.
Yeah, it's, oh, there we are. So the glass is blown into a cylinder shape, and these particular pieces, some of them are probably about that long. I mean, it's a huge weighty thing to be blowing, and about that sort of diameter. And then
blown by people with mouths, their mouths.
Blown with mouths, but also using the weight of the glass itself to drag the hot glass down, and it has to be constantly heated again, because as soon as it starts to cool, it will break and shatter.
Oh.
So and the smell of the hot shop is amazing. It's sort of hot newspaper burning wood. It's very, very exciting. I mean,
is this a traditional craft that that British craftsmen have been traditionally good at?
Yes, definitely. Well, I mean, European wide, it's not just British, but yeah, and it has narrowed down and down. And at the moment, the place where I have been buying my glasses, it hasn't closed down, but that particular side of things has closed down.
Right.
Luckily, I have quite a stock. The good news is that there are some young people in Stourbridge called Blowfish who, well, are starting up again and investigating making sheet glass. So at the moment, they're smaller sheets, but they look the same.
So how do you end up from a cylinder getting to a
that's
a
the tricky bit. That is the really hard bit. So you cut the two roundels off the end, and you cut a strip along the middle, and then that is annealed, which means it cools down at a slow temperature so that the glass won't shatter. But then when you want to flatten it, you have to heat it up again. But as it's heating up, you have to open up that glass. So it's,
I can't get my head around it.
And what about the colour? Where's the colour added?
The colour goes in right at the beginning. So you've got your
what's the colour coming from? Is it
minerals and and all of these things are getting harder and harder to get hold of. So
It's proper alchemy, though, isn't
It's
it? It's
real
just
alchemy.
amazing.
It is like,
And is this, when we see stained glass windows, is this how they would have been making them in the Middle Ages?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not an expert on glass, ridiculously, but
you paint
it's
onto it.
the painting is the same method. It's the same paint. So the paint has minerals and pigments and powdered glass in it. And there are two different methods of painting that I use. One is like a sgraffito, so you map the whole surface of the glass over and then scratch back into it, rather like the old scraper board. And all of this is done on a light box. And that is incredibly magical because you start with something black and then the light comes through. So you're working in reverse to if you're drawing with a pencil, because you're drawing with light, you're drawing with the light's color against the black, and then that would be fired. And then the other method is exactly the same paint. You grind it up. It's very like the inks that you use. You grind it up, and so many different glass artists have a different way of doing that and using different mediums. And so I use water and gum arabic, and then just using it like paint. And the fascinating thing about painting on glass is because glass is non-absorbent, so it's not like paper. As you paint over it or onto it, you can lift what you've already done if you haven't fired it. So you can either, some people paint in layers, so they'll paint an outline, they'll fire it, then they'll fill it in.
Amazing, yeah.
That is a traditional way of doing it.
How is that? And the fact that you can do it on both sides, is that why you get that feeling of depth in the imagery?
Yeah, well, that's one way. I mean, it's surprising how few people do paint on both sides, because it is just a gift, really. It just means more work, but you can also, you layer up by painting and then firing and then painting, and you can't do it in.
But they do break as well,
and
don't
they do break as well. But
so I just remember when you did the big, the diamond one, and absolutely beautiful, because in the same way that I will record my words and send them to Tamsin, Tamsin sends me pictures of work in progress. And she said, oh, well, I've got to put it in the kiln, so we'll see whether it breaks or not. And I was like, and there's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. Just, well.
What's the biggest you can make out of? Because you frame them with lead, don't you? What's roughly the biggest sort of size that you can work?
Well, I mean, windows can be huge.
Okay.
I'm limited in some ways. If I'm doing a single piece, I suppose I'd be limited by the size of my kiln. But actually, so our double page spread, can't remember the exact size, one of those, which is the Blodeuwedd one, is just one sheet of glass. And so for me, that was a bit risky, because the bigger the sheet of glass, the more likely it is to break, because you've got the different temperatures of the glass as it cools, even though it's in a kiln and you've set the controls so that everything happens, carefully. But that's the element of risk is, some people get their thrills from climbing mountains.
We don't know exactly how many bits of art are going to go into the book, do we?
Well, no, we started off with the theory that we were going to have one double page spread, one full single page spread, and then maybe another half page or something. But some of them just have more than that. Keep going. It's difficult to.
And it's an exciting thought, though, that it'd be an exhibition where people could. Yeah. So we'll obviously, it's one of the good things about doing this is we can let everybody know in plenty of time. Yeah. That's going to happen.
Yeah. And where.
And where.
Yeah. We have ideas, and Chris and Davina have ideas. So we'll see.
Yeah. So. I mean, I don't know. I think we can say it's not the end. It's not the beginning of the end. But I think we can say
the middle of the beginning of the end.
It's definitely the end of the beginning.
It's the end of the beginning.
And I mean, what we'll do is
I think we've done a lot in a year, actually.
Well, we were thinking about doing another one of these on the anniversary of the book. So we launched the book on the 6th of January, Epiphany, and it was a full moon.
It was a full moon. It was Epiphany.
So we could either go for Epiphany or the nearest full moon.
Yeah.
Which one? What is today? Today is the day when you have to stop eating blackberries.
Devil's Blackberry Day.
Yeah.
The devil has pissed on them, Ramon.
Oh, really?
That's what they say. Yeah.
Not that you'll turn
No.
into a devilish person. No.
Great. Well, we are going to end. We're going to do some spells, aren't we? I suppose I ought to check, make sure everybody's happy. Lena, there's nobody. Anything exciting coming in on the wire, Chris, that we should know about?
Tamsin knows about reverse glass painting. Extraordinary artists, especially in the 18th, 19th centuries of Canton, China, India too. From Anne-Marie Bannister.
So reverse glass painting. No, I'm going to have to go and look that one up.
No, that's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Anything else coming in, Chris, that we should know about?
There's a request for your exhibition to be in Kilmartin Glen.
Oh,
where's that?
Argyle.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
The whole valley of speaking stones.
Oh, wow.
Really? That sounds good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's actually, if people have got places with that.
Yeah.
So I mean, do send in suggestions of places.
Yeah. I need the nearest bookshop to Callanish.
Yeah.
Because I've never been to Callanish and I
Neither
wanted
have I.
to go there.
It's a stones tour that we're looking for.
Yeah, we are.
Kilmartin Glen. That's a great suggestion.
I've heard of it and I've always wanted to go. So yeah.
Thank you. Plenty of time to book B&B.
Yeah.
Don't leave it too late.
Yeah. I mean, it always, people are always amazed by the kind of lead times for books, but you know,
it just takes a long time if you don't craft something.
to do them properly.
Yeah.
And we have got, I said, I think we've been honest, we're not quite sure how we're going to make.
No, we don't know what sort of paper we're using. I always ask for deckled edges, and I'm always told that I can't have them because they're too expensive.
I think it's more that the printers in this country, European printers, don't seem to do them. And I don't know. This will probably get printed in the Far East. But
don't want sprayed edges though, because apparently it's environmentally disastrous to have sprayed edges. There's a fashion for it. More. Yeah. So just deckled, it's not much to ask for, but hey,
let's find out. So if anything else comes up, Chris, let us know. But we thought we might.
One of the things about the spells is that we have this idea to thread these little 4-line verses in between the stories, and then I had the idea that my friend could make bracelets with them on, and Tamsin does have one.
I took it off so I wouldn't jangle. Very beautiful.
And that one is, what is it? White Raven. So
you have to get it in the right order.
Never mind, you can read your own bracelet. So these are wild folk bracelets. It starts with White Raven.
Oh yes, White Raven. Rook Flight. Jay Feather. Eye Bright.
And how many of the badges have we done so far? Just the 2 of them?
There's 3 at the moment.
Well,
4, but there's going to be
and 4 designs are ready.
4 designs are ready to go. So
it's going to be 7.
Are we going to send those out early? Aren't we?
I don't know. We might do.
I'll probably get buzzed by being
they're really nice. I haven't got one on. I've got a different badge that says slightly sweary but remarkably articulate, which is not the same thing. Wild folk badge
with writing by Stephen Raw.
Yeah, amazing calligrapher.
Right, Tamsin is going to read us the spell. These are the spells.
We'll just keep going.
Just read them all.
Wheatear, turning year. Swallow flight, blossom bright, Heron's brook, kingfisher stream, wild rose thorn, brown trout gleam, eagle soar on thermal lift, wren song, Shapeshift. Owl call, fox bark, bats hunt in ink dark. Moon rise, swans rest. Night falls, birds nest.
Purple slow,
Black crow,
jay wing,
raven sing.
feel fair,
Brown hair,
dragonfly,
wild eye.
raven wing,
Otter sleek,
very bright,
bird beak.
seal song,
Spindrift,
curlew cry,
shape
Shapeshift.
shift.
seashell, wave spell, seal chive, time tide, holly leaf, hawthorn berry, oak seed, wild cherry,
Catkins, collar dove, snowdrop spears, foxglove.
Wonderful. I love the way you've got the old and the new in this book. That's very of the moment, isn't it? Turning in the seasons, and the tales are coming from very, very old stories.
That's because I'm a very, very old person. Very, very, very old.
Ancient.
Positively.
Ancient. That's good. That's, as I say, it's worth waiting.
If you cut my bones open, I would have cut rings engraved upon them. But don't.
It's all right, Jackie. I think we're very nearly out of time. I think you can see that the performance aspect of this book is going to be quite important. I think it would be fun to do
an audio book.
Yeah.
With music.
Good. We're all good. I think we're all good online. We've got 5 more minutes to fill.
Okay.
Okay.
So I
think we should talk about book 2. I always love during an event pitching a book to my publisher. So I feel like, we're getting the hang of it now. And we both would quite like to do a couple of others. So it may be the first of a series, John.
Yeah, well, each time we have these conversations, the books it's like something from a very far away coming into focus.
Yeah.
I can almost feel now. I mean, it's particularly amazing looking at the artwork today, which, to be honest, is the combination of Jackie's words and it does feel like something that's very new and different for both of you.
One of the things we haven't done yet, we were talking about trying to get the words onto the glass as well somehow. I know that makes it difficult for foreign rights and translations, but it's things that we've been trying to think about and how to do that and whether to do it even. It doesn't seem so relevant for this one now.
No,
but certainly with the spells to have, if you could have Jay Feather, and so do each one. Some of them would be not words in the book; they would be words on the glass.
Engraved or painted or printed, maybe.
Type on glass.
So
how to get the glass in my typewriter.
What are the last 2 tales, Jackie?
The last 2, one is a reworking of a story called The Black Fox, which actually began over a bottle of cider in my Tamsin's kitchen in Hereford. There's a cider called Black Fox
by Dunkerton's.
And there is a story behind it.
Well, that was previous to that at your house in Pembrokeshire. We went for a night walk and we saw this
biggest fox, like a
huge black fox, like a wolf.
And
it still, was it really there? It was. But it was enormous.
We weren't looking for foxes, we were looking for badgers, weren't we? And do we have the cats with us as well? At least one ginger cat.
We're a bit concerned.
But it was going through.
Jackie's cats do go; they walk with you. Don't
These were different ones, because this was a long time ago. But in where I live, the trees are blown so much by the winds that you don't need a weather vane to know which way the wind blows, as one musician once said. And it was just moving through this line of winter trees, wasn't it? Amazing.
Hedge line.
Yeah.
But also, we haven't even talked about shape shifting, really, have we?
No.
So that's a huge subject to cover another
It's
time.
very ironic that when we first began filming for this book, about shape shifting, I was just beginning shape shifting for before my knee operation, and it's been quite magical, really. If you watch the film that is on the pledge page, you will see what I mean.
More shape shifting to come.
More shape shifting
Well, look,
to come.
I think this has been, as always, it's marvellous to be with you both, and I think
It's quite nice to be with you.
quite exciting to find out where we've got to.
Yeah.
There will be more updates both through the site, but also I think, as I say, it would be nice to do something.
Yeah, and we're
in
going to put
January.
this film on so that people can.
Yeah.
This film will be available for people to
For
watch
all you
at their
people
leisure.
who can't watch it now and aren't watching it now.
Yes, for those people who are joining us at some point in the future,
Yeah.
we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
But a
And thank
massive
you.
thanks
Thank you.
to both of you. Thank you to everybody who's pledged and supported this
Absolutely.
book so far.
Yeah.
Massive also thanks to the glorious 7 Fables in Dollerton, in Exmoor, a truly mystical, magical place
Beautiful.
A destination.
to be, and to Chris Jelly and Davina Jelly, who have hosted us so generously here this evening, and with combination of cups of tea and tech skill and everything else.
Without whom this book would not have come about.
That is true.
Yeah.
So,
They are absolutely. It's
integral part.
bringing people together and ideas are born.
I quite like them.
Yes.
It has to be said.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we're
Thank
about to go. Thank you
Thank
for tuning in.
everybody
Thank
so
you
much
Thank you for
for supporting us. Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Love you all.